This is Group 1's discussion on the Volkswagen defeat device debacle. Group members Humphrey Winyo, Costas Katanis, Sadat Kalam, and Sarah Keffer. Next slide, please. The auto industry competitive landscape. Next slide, please. Yes, by 2015, VW was the second largest auto manufacturer in the world, followed just behind Toyota, and the largest automobile manufacturer in the Chinese market, which is the world's largest. Despite this, the VW has struggled to penetrate the U.S. market, despite a near monopoly in the sale of diesel engines. So VW came up with a strategy they thought that would provide them with a competitive advantage, and that is the sale of diesel engine technology in the U.S. VW's logic in this strategy was that with the rising prices of gas and the clamor for a better mileage and fuel economy, a diesel would be a winning market penetration strategy. Next slide, please. The competition in the auto industry has been quite intense, and VW faces significant challenges in all segments of the industry. The introduction of electric vehicles by Tesla has added to VW's market as it entered VW's market share. The other significant point to note is that labor costs, particularly in Germany, are particularly high, and as a result, VW lagged significantly behind competitors like Toyota in terms of the operating margins. Next slide, please. From this defeat device debacle, the impacts to VW include increased compliance and legal costs. The scandal has already cost VW $25 billion in losses, and there's increased regulatory oversight. And the most significant is the fact that the European Central Bank suspended the asset-backed securities for car loans from VW, which will significantly raise the cost of financing of VW sales in the future. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have the VW brands. Next slide, please. VW's the scandal and the response to the scandal. Next slide, please. Three vehicles were tested by West Virginia University to demonstrate the clean diesel technology by VW, and two Volkswagen models were tested, plus a BMW. The BMW passed, but the two Volkswagen models failed, and the California Air Resource Board shared its test results with VW and EPA, and VW admitted that the generation 1, 2, and 3 were installed with equipped with a device defeat software, and these were supposed to alter the performance of the engines when the vehicles were subjected to testing in order to meet U.S. standards. Next slide, please. In October 2015, the VW America's CEO apologized for the scandal and came up with incentives to keep VW owners in the Volkswagen family. And as a result of that, they issued some rebates. And then in December 2015, the new CEO, Matthias Müller and Hans-Dieter Porsche, attributed the roots of the scandal to individual misconduct, a chain of mistakes, and a tolerance for rule breaking. Next slide, please. And in 2016, the CEO of Volkswagen claimed that the scandal was a result of a misunderstanding of American law by technical engineers, and Volkswagen pleaded guilty in a court in Michigan to a conspiracy to defraud the U.S. and violate the U.S. Clean Air Act, and the estimated penalties to date stand at $23 billion.
Section 3, we discuss ethical issues. Next slide, please. The ethical issues that Volkswagen faced revolve around honesty and integrity. Winterkorn decided to kill the program because of it created a significant price hike per car. Prior to U.S. launch of 2007, Volkswagen was having problems with the launch. Bosch must have noticed issues with the diesel engines and warned Winterkorn of the consequences of launching the defeat devices to the U.S. Next slide, please. But a sudden solution was found with only a small delay. The defeat devices were launched in 2008. Winterkorn decided to ignore Bosch's warnings because emissions testing is in the same location as the Blue Tech was created, and it is more relaxed compared to the U.S. Winterkorn showed little regard for social corporate responsibility and responsibility for the environment. He did not believe that he made a poor ethical decision against Volkswagen's customers and investors. The lack of honesty and integrity can make or break a company. The loss of trust has dire consequences. Next slide. And next. And then next slide, please.
So our case analysis also looks into how power and governance has played a role in the scandal. So we see that Volkswagen has adopted a two-tier corporate structure in which two independent boards are working together to manage the firm. So we have the management board, which oversees the day-to-day activities, and the supervisory board, which oversees management's performance. In a statement from Michael Horn, the Volkswagen CEO of America, he stated that in response to the scandal, this was not a corporate decision. No board meeting or supervisory meeting has authorized this. This essentially puts distance between the supervisory board and the scandal itself. So this section is going to look to answer two questions. Is the Volkswagen supervisory board structure effective in handling important corporate decisions? And is the Volkswagen supervisory board acting independently and without bias when monitoring the actions of management? In order to answer those questions, we first break down the Volkswagen supervisory board. At the time of the emission scandal, there was equal representation between the employees represented through the Works Council and shareholder interests. Both groups had 10 board seats. Within the shareholder group, we see the Porsche and Pike families owning a majority of votes with 51% of the votes and 4 board seats. The government of Lower Saxony holding 20% of the votes and 2 board seats. Qatar Investment Holdings holding 17% of votes and 2 board seats, while the remaining 2 board seats and 12% of votes were held by outsiders. On the right, we can see a pie chart visually displaying the spread of shareholder power, and we see that a majority of that is held by the Porsche and Pike families. These families also have strong influence on which members are appointed to the board and to management roles within Volkswagen. Some examples include Ms. Annika Falk-Kengren, who held an outside appointed seat from 2011 to 2018. She was also the chief executive of Swedish bank STB, which advises one of Volkswagen's brands, Scania. So the purpose of the outside appointed board is to have a independent member. However, we can see some conflict of interest here where Ms. Annika Falk-Kengren is tied to one of Volkswagen's brands. Another example is Volkswagen's current supervisory board chairman, Hans-Dieter Posch, has close relationship with the families. Posch was also the finance director at the time of the emission scandal. And a third example is the new CEO, Mathis Müller, who replaced Winterkorn during the scandal, is also known to be a close associate of Pike. So in summary, although the board may appear to represent a wide range of interests, it appears the actual control is centralized to the family owners of the Porsche Pike family. We also see additional conflicts of interest with the supervisory board. The way it's broken down, the Works Council, which represents the employees, are likely to opposing decisions that result in reducing the number of employees or wage cuts. The other group of representatives in the supervisory board is the government of Lower Saxony, which will likely focus on decisions that provide economic stability and economic stability in the region and political advantages. While the Porsche-Pike family, which holds a majority of the voting power, will primarily be interested on reputational and financial recovery of the Volkswagen brand. So this summarizes that certain members of the supervisory board have personal vested interest in Volkswagen, and so this lack of independence results in a board that is taking on more of a managerial role versus a supervisory one. So in response to the two questions, we see the answer being no, and this is essentially because the majority of power is centralized within family owners. Power stays within the family even when outside appointed members are brought on, and members of the supervisory board have conflicts of interest and therefore are unable to effectively monitor actions of management.
All right, so now that we've gone through the analytics and the facts, let's discuss what Volkswagen should do moving forward. Next slide. Volkswagen should seriously consider changing the voting percentages of the supervisory board. Board members need to have an unbiased opinion. They should not be easily swayed by family ties or favors. The members should act solely in the best interest of the company. Management should be changed to a group that is not easily persuaded by the owners. They should be an ethical group of individuals that promote an environment of transparency and trust. Subordinates should feel as if they can easily approach management with issues and mistakes. Employees should not be in a constant fear of losing their job. Ethics should be Volkswagen's number one priority. If employees have any doubts with any direct orders from management, they should be immediately questioned. This sort of check and balance system will help create and maintain the healthy professional environment. Technologically, Volkswagen should invest heavily in alternative fuel technologies. The term clean diesel seems to be an oxymoron, so let's move onward and upward. Volkswagen should invest in electric powered vehicles, or maybe even join Toyota in pioneering the first hydrogen powered vehicle. Next slide. In conclusion, what Volkswagen did was unethical, irresponsible, and downright wrong. Instead of admitting defeat and abandoning the impossible task of creating a clean diesel technology, they thought they could outwit the world. This led to billions of dollars in fines and penalties. They have lost the trust of their consumers and regulatory agencies. Moving forward, they need to remove or lessen the amount of family members on their supervisory and managerial boards. They need to create an environment of trust and transparency. Fear should not factor in decision-making abilities of their employees. Volkswagen needs to earn the trust of their consumers by creating truly green technologies and show responsibility towards their environment.